Players want to play, haters want to hate. Wait, is that a song? Anyway, I was afraid I was going to channel Taylor Swift or something like that, but I'll just shake it off and then go on.
Oh, God. Okay, stop. I
think I just killed Cody.
My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin. Anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking.
Back at it again with another shade of blue. We are the KC Soccer Journal. My name is Cody Bradley. Thad Bell and Robert Russert are here with me. Sporting Kansas City continue to sink deeper and deeper into this. It's arguably gotten worse than it was last year at this time. Peter Vermes has reached his breaking point. And because things have gotten so bad, we have an old sponsor that wanted to return, boys. We didn't know they had magical powers the first time that they were on, but it turns out that they do. So they wanted to see if their powers still work here. So this episode is brought to you by Sweat Be Gone. Do you stink? Like, really stink? This innovative new antiperspirant formula is guaranteed to keep sweat away. Forever. Sweat Be Gone. You stink, bro.
Is it going to work this time, Cody?
I don't know. So what happened last time this ad played was Ben Sweat was gone 2 days later and never to be seen ever again. So it had magical powers. We don't know who Vermes and who everyone is exactly upset with. We're going to try to figure that out on this pod. So we didn't have one for a certain player, but I'm thinking the Sweat Be Gone had magical powers, and there may be another jettison coming this week. Tuesday is the day where we get to see if there is a player mysteriously missing and a promise that we'll get a comment tomorrow about what has happened to this player. Thad, this has happened many times before.
It has. You see my name in the StreamYard chat thing there?
Yes, Thad's name is Thad Wonders, who is sweating now.
I knew exactly where this pod was going to go.
Classic Jettisons. If you remember, we did top 5 Sporting KC Jettisons. He has a long-running history, and it just feels like this is coming. It always comes after some really serious comments, and like I said, Vermes did reach his breaking point, so we're going to hear a little bit from him. Everyone has heard or read the suffering comment. I don't know how you get much more pointed and direct than this. I actually think this one's actually kind of funny, so let's listen.
I'm the first person to say, I'll take responsibility, but when I have to do that, it's also going to be really, when I was talking about suffering, there will be some suffering over there, some real suffering.
Just an ominous suffering from Peter Vermes. I don't know what that means, Robert, but he's the last person that I want to tell me I'm going to be suffering. It could come in so many forms.
Yeah, well, when I was a high school coach, I know what that meant. When I felt that way, it meant that they'd be running. But I'm pretty sure it's not the case here with Sporting Kansas City. It's going to be more like, and Peter knows how this feels, not playing. You know, it's you suffer when you don't play. So that's probably the suffering that he's referring to. But who knows? It could be running those steps, those stair things behind the training pitch could be utilized on Tuesday.
They
who knows?
never use those. Thad, are you going on Tuesday? Tell me if those stairs are in use. They built them into the training complex, and they always just sit there. I don't think I've ever once seen them. There's varying heights and levels of stairs, and it looks like it could be a good workout. I've just never seen them use it.
Well, and that's why it was built there, was for a good workout. There's the ones with short steps, so it's easy. The one with bigger steps, the ones you'd have to like essentially jump. There's also ramp that you could run up and down. Usually you just see people sitting on them to watch, but it could be used.
Or maybe that's how the hamstring injuries have been happening. They've been using them too much.
Robert, you harkened back to a high school coach. And I think some of the comments from Vermes after this reminds me of just that old school, gritty high school football coach that I don't know. I think in other sports that coaching philosophy is kind of fading away maybe a little bit. But Thad, you sent me, thank you for sending me some of the audio there from Vermes. One of them was longer. I think it was probably just the first general question when they kind of opened it up to Vermes after. And he says a lot of words without saying a whole bunch of different meaningful things. He just it's about mentality, and you got to want it more. You got to have heart. He just said every single one of those cliches that you can. And I am kind of making fun of that because it's funny to me. But at the same time, Thad, I think we're pretty fair on this show normally. And we talked about at one point after the comments where he said, I'm not worried about it, you are, that we just kind of wanted him to get mad. Show us that you do care. I think there was an aspect of protecting his players on that one. But I think that's what I mean when we've reached a breaking point with him, because he went from that to I'm going to get in trouble with the media by protecting my players all the way to they're going to suffer in that locker room. So I do have one clip here. That I think is more pointed. He talks about more specifics. So that's the one I'm going to play because I think it's pretty good. He talks about the actual goals. And this is where we can kind of try to figure out who he might be talking about, who he's angry with, and who might be jettisoned.
Say first, the 2 goals we gave up, they're atrocious in my opinion. And look, I'm the head coach, so I have to take responsibility for it. But the organization is always put together on set pieces. Simple situation for us to give up that goal the way we did. Just amateur, at best. The second goal, lack of effort, and it's really easy to see who those people are. Lack of effort to get back there because their player ran by a couple of ours. That's not Sporting Kansas City mentality. It's not, and I have a real problem with that aspect of it, and I'll be dealing with that like very quickly because that's just unacceptable to me. If there's one thing that I can't put up with, and that is the lack of effort on plays. And then the other thing is we have a responsibility to our fans when they come into this place to leave your heart on the field. Leave your blood, sweat, and tears on the field. And I think certain guys do that, and I think certain guys don't. And if I have to make the changes within the starting lineup, whatever, then I will do that. It's unfortunate.
See, there was a little bit of that. You got to leave your blood, sweat, and tears on the field, boys, the high school coach there. And I'm making fun of that because, like I said, there's not necessarily a lot of sustenance there. But we did. We wanted him to get angry, and he finally has gotten angry about this. So there's something to that, at least I'm hoping. But before we start here, we were watching both of those goals, trying to figure out who he was talking about. And Thad, I think on at least the second goal is the one where I think he was the most direct about speaking about certain players, because he had that part about their guy ran past a couple of ours. And when I'm watching that video, to me, that looks very clearly like 2 kind of surprising players, admittedly. But to me, the guy who scores that goal runs past both Johnny Russell and Jake Davis.
He does. He goes down because Jake got deep up there on top. Johnny's kind of essentially playing the right back at that point, which is not really what you want to have happen.
Right, because Jake wasn't back there. So Johnny did make an initial effort to get back there.
Yeah, and I think everything just depends on how you look at this play, right? Because we talked about this before we started recording. At the point the ball was kicked, Johnny pulled up and looked like he was even with Fontes, like they were trying to pull the offside trap. Mm-hmm. Jake saw Johnny going with the guy, so he was coming along and probably looking for every other opportunity that he needed to defend. When Johnny pulls up, he then puts on the burst of speed trying to catch up to the goal scorer. I don't think that one's a lack of effort. I think that one's just a miscommunication between 2 tired guys 78 minutes into a game of a third game of a week kind of thing. I know they didn't play all the minutes, but that's just a right back who's only played it for a year and a aging right wing who has played it for a lot of years, who maybe just aren't in quite sync.
And did kind of track back on that play. I think the key thing that I saw watching that is that the instant before the player makes the run into the box as he scores, Johnny takes a peek at him. He looks over his shoulder, and the guy's still just kind of standing there. And instantly when he turns back around is when the guy makes the run. So I don't know. There's an aspect of this where I'm not sure. Again, I'm happy that Vermes showed this anger and that showed that he is as mad as the fans are. That's what we asked for, and he did that. I don't want that to be lost. But part of me thinks maybe it is a little weird that these are the goals. Like, he calls these atrocious, and I'm not sure that these are really, like you just said, maybe a miscommunication, some tired legs, bad timing on when Johnny looks at the runner. I'm not sure they're as atrocious as some of these other goals that we've seen given up this year where he wasn't as pointed.
Well, let's look at a few more aspects here of this. When you're in the situation that you've been in, giving up leads, late goals at home, things like that, trying the offside trap and doing what Johnny did was actually move inside more instead of to the man is probably not what you want to see. You want to see Johnny or Jake, if he can get there, whoever, put your body on that guy and make sure that he cannot receive a ball. If you step up at the last second and you're right next to him when the ball's played to do the offside trap, fine, you're right there. But Johnny actually moves a little bit inward away from him. I would rather see, and I think perhaps Peter would too, a body be close to him, so if the ball does come to him, you can knock it away, for whatever. So maybe that. And also, as another aspect, remember Leibold against St. Louis, he could have taken the player out. What about the ball carrier? Why was he not stopped? Why did somebody just not take the responsibility right there and just put a body on him and make sure he couldn't make that pass?
Who would have done that in that situation? Salloi?
Voloder does stop. So he's possibly the one that I'd be looking at.
Thad's trying to watch this live.
I'm just saying, guys, in this situation where we've given them so many leads, you've got to take more of an active responsibility than trying to pull an offside trap.
Well, yeah, I'm not liking the whole offside trap there either. I'll be honest. I'm just going with, it looks like that may be what Johnny was doing because he pulled up level with Fontas.
Yeah.
I don't think Volodor ever got close enough to have just taken him out. And then that's also a dangerous free kick spot if he had. It would have been somebody should have needed to do it up around the center line, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the guy had went by Salloi. Well, I should say he went by Salloi because that makes it sound like he just blew by him. He got Salloi because of the pass, and Salloi tried to catch up to him. He cut in front of him and made Salloi have to pull up for a second, which gave him a little bit of space. It was a good run by that guy in that case. Because there's always all these little things that go into how you play a game that some people don't really look at very closely. The guy did the right thing by basically forcing Salloi to pull up or foul him in that case. Because you also don't want to foul him way up there because there's no need, because you're supposed to have defense behind you. Everything didn't quite go right in this one, but it was also a very nice pass out to that guy. It was a good run. All of that was well done on Houston's part. And I don't know if it would have been different if Jake would have been back. Because, I think Jake would have stuck with him more.
But the main point I'm making is active defending can be more effective than passive defending, which is mostly what we saw here.
I don't disagree. I'm just not sure where the active defending would have came into play at that moment. And we're also, again, talking 78 minutes into third game of the week, which mentally tired a little bit. Again, not excusing it, just understanding it a little bit.
Sure.
So Robert, I'm sorry, Thad. Robert, are you on that train of that these two goals were atrocious? Like that you're as fed up with
I think atrocious is strong, but I'm just saying I think this is what Peter might have been looking for. And, in any situation you can say, hey, maybe if we'd done this wouldn't have happened. Right. But I think with the situation the team's been in, the context of giving up so many points, you've got to give your blood, guts, and tears, and you've got to bust a lung to get back and get that guy as you can. You cannot be passive about it. You've got to be more aggressive. And that kind of fits with Peter's mentality, I believe.
It does. Aggressive, hard on the field, want it more. So Salloi also got in on the post-game. So Salloi also had a lot to say in the post-game. I'm not sure, Thad, if they're actually saying the same thing. I think when I heard this at first, it was they were on the same page. They're both mad about maybe a couple certain players and they were seeing the same thing. But I don't know. I'm gonna play this audio and we'll try to figure out who he's talking about, what he's saying here.
What do you think needs to change in the locker room or on the field to help fix the mentality?
I mean, if there's players who don't have the mentality, get rid of them and move on. We're playing professional sports. If you don't have the mentality, then what are we doing? So if it's me, get rid of me. If it's others, get rid of others. Every year we have this problem, then change it.
That question came from Jimmy Mack, and I believe part of it was he mentioned to Salloi the quotes from Vermes that we had just heard. And so, I don't know. Thad, what do you think? Is he hearing that and kind of scoffing at Vermes' comments? Or did Salloi see certain players and was just in full agreement that maybe there are certain players that they need to get rid of?
I think it's a really good question, Cody. I think that answer could go a lot of different ways. He could have just been yelled at in the locker room, although Peter has said many times he doesn't go talk to the players right after a game, even a bad game. But it took a little while for him to get in there, so maybe he was calming down or maybe he was having a chat with players. I don't know. So it could be that. It could be that he's seen somebody. He could be that hey, if this is happening year after year, maybe somebody needs to go and maybe it's not a player. I'm not trying to put words into anybody's mouth. That's not what I'm trying to do in any way, shape, or form. I don't know how to interpret that.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, Jimmy asked the one question, and the other part of the answer came from another person asking the question.
Right.
I don't remember if that was Robert or somebody else. So.
Yeah. Let's play this one again.
We're playing professional sports. If you don't have the mentality, then what are we doing? So if it's me, get rid of me. If it's others, get rid of others. Every year we have this problem, then change it.
Yeah, I don't know. If you listen with that with a certain ear, then that can sound like he is frustrated at Vermes' comments, like saying that every year there's someone that we need to get rid of. Every year there's a mentality problem. And it's like, fine, if there's a mentality problem, let's change it. If we have this mentality problem every year, let's change it.
Yep.
Robert, how are you hearing that?
Well, first of all, it's a little difficult when you have a roster as large as you do to not have mentality problems with
right.
a handful of players. Second of all, Salloi is very frustrated himself, and he wasn't exactly thrilled about having to answer questions, I think, in the locker room after that one. He had quite a long talk with Robo before we even came over. So I think he was really just not in the mood, and perhaps he was just being short and sweet and to the point just to, be done with us as well.
Nobody wants to be answering questions in that situation. So
right. Yep.
Kudos to him for standing up and being, the leader that he is to do that.
Sure.
Because the only two players that we talked to in the locker room after that was him and Memo.
Right.
Memo, look at that. Positive we could talk about. Memo had a good game. Memo wanted a goal. He was as hungry and lively as I've seen him, Thad.
He could have tackled that guy in that play too.
So nobody did well. The whole team is going to suffer from that play.
He's right there. I can see his blondish hair. Did he look a little bit like Roger Espinoza out there with that blondish hair? Remember when Roger did the blonde hair?
Enough blonde. It's not blonde. It's gray. Like it's like a frosted gray. Gray was in for a while, you guys.
It's whatever color, man. Blonde.
I thought he was Griezmann at first. I thought we signed somebody.
Yeah. So does this mean a jettison is coming? I don't know, because we talked about that second goal. It seemed like the two he was calling out or that weren't enough on that play was Jake Davis and Johnny Russell. I don't see them just disappearing from training mysteriously on Tuesday, Thad.
No, they just signed Jake to a new contract.
That was a comment that two people made that will remain nameless. Salloi doesn't quite understand contracts.
Just get rid of them, right?
Well, I mean, you can, but it would be highly embarrassing to get rid of Jake Davis 2 weeks after he just signed a contract.
No,
okay?
I'm just saying Vermes seems to have a knack for this. Like Jose Maury could have. Like they agreed, quote unquote, agreed to part ways. Ben Sweat was the same thing, right? Wasn't that just like, I think the player has to agree to something there. Like they're so fed up with the way things are going there that they also want no part of this. So
We just solved the mystery,
Well,
Cody. You just did. Shelly was offering himself up.
I know I'm
No.
yeah, all right. Valid point. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't see a jettison coming. I mean, Janice, who somehow, I don't know how, has just been given a flurry of opportunities like out of nowhere, and I haven't seen him do anything with it yet. So that could be one, but he
scored a goal in the Open Cup. He played 120 minutes in Omaha on turf, and then came into the game.
He mishit it. He mishit the ball, and it went in the back of the net. It was a mishit.
He scored a goal
accidentally.
Are you giving someone time just for a last second? Okay, one more try.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. This is exactly where I was going. I watch a lot of television. I'm a pro at television, and there's a thing that happens right before a character is killed off. They're never one of the big characters, but all of a sudden, that season, we start diving more into their story. They get a whole episode. We learn more about them. They build up some drama, and then bam, sweat be gone.
I am sure that's exactly the logic that Peter uses for this. Let's get more interest in a guy that I'm going to blame at the next game for a loss.
I know he's going to do so bad that no one will be mad when I get rid of him.
Well, that might have been the logic, except he got a lot of praise for how he played up there.
Right.
Because he actually did play fairly decently, and he got a goal, and he played a full 120 minutes. And in talking to people, I know there's been a lot of times where people are like, why aren't we seeing Janice? Why aren't we seeing Janice? Well, because he didn't do enough in practice to earn any time. And what I've understood is he's turned it on lately and gotten better in practice and all that stuff and earned some time. I don't know if it's physical, mental, bad luck, whatever, but you don't players time that are sucking. And he was, and now he wasn't, and he got time. And I thought he played fairly well in Omaha, and his little bit of time replacing Polito, which, by the way, had the lowest foot mob rating in that game, I think.
Allen did?
Yeah. And was one subbed out at one point for a guy who had just played 120 minutes 3 days before, who hadn't played any minutes before. So I don't know. Maybe there was something there.
Houston had played 120 minutes as well. Don't forget that. So it was
not all of the players.
Steven.
Again, not all the players for Sporting did, and they also got 120 minutes a day earlier than Sporting did. So there's a little bit of difference there.
Man, just to jump back to that Open Cup game, because we didn't have a chance to talk about it. I was out of town in Florida, in Paradise. It was great, by the way. Thank you for asking. I was so annoyed with Polito at the end of that game. I was just screaming at him to do that the whole time. You are a $10 million player. You are significantly better than everyone else on the field there. I'm just so frustrated by him. It seemed like at the last second, he was like, oh yeah, I'm better than all of them. And he just shot it and scored. And it looks like he could have done that the entire time he was out there. And I really wish he would have carried that into to MLS play, because I'm getting frustrated and he's killing us.
Yeah, I'm not real happy with him right now either, but he got the goal at the 120th minute. It's the first time a $9 million player played at that college field.
Yeah, took $10 million to beat that lower league team.
You know, at least they beat the team. Two other MLS teams didn't beat their lower level teams, so
that's true. Only two, though.
It's not that uncommon in cups like this to have,
of course,
teams struggle against lower level teams because they're playing their best team and the upper level team isn't playing their best team.
It's part of the beauty of the tournament. That's what I was trying to. I was in this house with a whole bunch of other people, a lot of soccer casuals, and I was trying to explain to them, even though I was so pissed off about what was happening, I'm like, this is why soccer's great. This is why this tournament's great, and I hate everything.
Yeah, you don't often get like beer league softball teams going up against Major League Baseball teams, right?
Oh, so yes, we're happy that they're playing in that tournament. We got more Sporting KC soccer. Not the kind of soccer that we are wanting this season, but we got more of it. Go Lamar Hunt, U.S. Open Cup. So back to the jettisons. Do we think that there is a jettison? We've talked about Janice. I don't know. Is there anyone we're missing, Robert? Could you see anyone that's a candidate for this?
Oh boy, that's a tough question to throw at me there.
So
Well-
okay, you see, you don't like that. Everyone's afraid to talk bad about the players. That is a perfect segue for me here, Robert. Thank you.
Okay, well, you didn't give me time to answer, but okay.
Okay, well, okay, there you go. You seem like you were afraid of like I'm gonna have to call somebody out here. You go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
Well, that's okay. So, I mean, if you look at, Caden Pierre isn't going to be cut loose, even though his injuries have just been ridiculous for the poor guy.
Well, and did he? Yeah, okay. I don't know that he played bad enough for that, but
No. I don't think he's going to be. But there's nobody really on the roster that sticks out that really has been that useless that needs to go. John East is the guy that I think most of us have been thinking is going to be the one that's going to be gone somewhat soon. And if he is, that under 22 slot, with the new rules coming in, could open up some real possibilities. So it's intriguing just simply because of that.
Thad, who do you want to see jettisoned?
I don't know that I want to see anybody jettisoned, but I think if anybody is, it's John East, but not anything to do with this last 2 games.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It'll just be because I think he's wanted to go because he wasn't getting playing time. He could go elsewhere and probably get some playing time.
Right.
Players want to play. Haters want to hate. Wait, is that a song? Anyway.
Thad's writing R&B tracks over here.
I was afraid I was going to channel Taylor Swift or something like that, but I'll just shake it off and then go on.
Oh, God. Okay, stop.
I think I just killed Cody.
Oh my God. Okay.
But I think if anybody's going to be gone, it's just going to be John East because over the summer window, he can go somewhere else and find opportunity where he can play more and maybe get back into a groove. I do think he played well in Omaha. I don't think he played terribly here in this game in Houston when he came in. And so that's just the most likely candidate because there's nobody else. I can't see them getting rid of Jake. Like I said, I can't see him getting rid of Johnny, even if Peter blames them for that. I don't see him getting rid of Salloi if you blamed him for something up the field. And everybody else has either been okay, good, or at least slightly above mediocre. Just as a team, they've been well below mediocre.
Okay, well, that is something that I was wanting to talk about. The attention is on Peter Vermes. This team's not good enough. Vermes didn't build a strong enough roster. I feel like that's a common theme. Most people are on board with that. But whenever I say that one of the actual players, when I talk about one of the actual players maybe not being good enough, then I just become a hater about it. So my question, if this roster is not good enough, who actually is not good enough?
Well, Polito has not been performing, as we have already discussed.
Okay, the most expensive player is not good enough. That's a disaster.
But part of that is the position that he's been put in. Without Gadikinda, Eric Tommy being out Saturday night. So that's part of that issue.
And the position he's been playing lately, Robert.
Right, exactly.
This formation, it hasn't even really been working, but we keep seeing it.
It's because it's the best we got right now, Cody.
I know.
Willie, I like Willie, but he did not perform well Saturday night. He's very inconsistent. His first touch is just too loose for MLS. It might have worked back in the league he played in before, but it's too loose for MLS oftentimes. But there's been great goals, 2 of them between Polito and Agata combining, fairly recently that we've seen. And that's what we want it to be. It's just not that often enough. I don't think there's anybody who's really that bad. I just think the roster is very average. The team has always been the star with Peter Vermes. That's his philosophy, the team, the system, if you will. Yeah. And, but that's also a problem because when teams are, players aren't communicating well enough, or we're not working well on set pieces or something of that nature, that can bring the team down pretty easily just by itself, a combination of little things, because we don't have that star player, that guy that's going to, in one moment score a wonderful goal or make a beautiful pass and, tie the match back up or take the lead in that position.
We're supposed to. We were supposed to have that star player. We got a Mexican striker who scores a lot of goals. Where's he at?
What year was that we signed him and he was that guy?
Last year. They did it last
But
year.
Nate Bukaty opened up the broadcast with, "We have 2 Mexican superstars." And I'm like, please stop referring to Polito as a superstar.
Oh, he's killing us, man. We simply cannot afford to sign a player like that and have him just disappear and not do his job for so long, Thad.
No, he's too key to the roster. I mean, he's too key to the play on the field. He's needed to do that. I don't care about the money aspect a lot because, I mean, he's making like $2 million, $2.2 million. That's a lot. I know.
Do we know that this year? We don't know what he's making this year. We haven't seen it since he signed the contract.
Yeah,
True.
that was the last year's. That's a good point. But we also saw that according to the roster thing that they did, he's a tammable
Right.
DP, so he's
Right.
making less than that, if I remember the rules correctly. But still, that's I've been long in the position where I don't look at DPs as being the most special player in the world. When you're making $9 million a year, yes, that's a little bit different. But just being a DP doesn't mean as much because it's a way for the teams to manipulate the cap and the money. They can allocate more money in 1 year, bump you up to a DP. Only part of it's covered against the cap. Only part of it hits the cap. You can get paid this money. Then next year you can come down to be under a DP level, and somebody else can go up, and they can all earn different monies and all that stuff. And it's all capology and bookkeeping and all that shit that doesn't mean a lot. When you're a Messi or a Suarez or somebody, that's a whole different thing. Polito should be an above average striker in this league with how much he's paid, with his reputation. And right now he's a below average striker this year. Last year, when he got back off of injury, when he got hot, he was good. He's not gotten form this year. That's a problem, whether it's a mental or physical or everything else in the team. But he's not a guy you can just probably cut either.
Well, here's the thing, though. And I had a chat with Sperry and with Jimmy Mack yesterday at the current game. If you get a number 10 who can feed Alan Polito, then maybe that changes the whole dynamic.
Right. And not having to create for himself or create as much for others. Even if you get a number 10 behind him, he's still going to drop back. That's been how he's played, even with Gotti out there. He'll do that. But you then have the 10 that can fill his spot, that can score goals. But nobody is that person right now. That's not a Tommy thing. He likes to be in the midfield, but he's still a better winger than he is a midfielder.
Let's take a quick break because we just went 33 minutes of complaining without taking our first break. Long first segment.
Cody, look what you made us do.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
All right, we're back. Robert, you said the part about the machine, the system being the star for this team. I've mentioned this. I've tried to convey this on the show before, where we live and we die by that. I think for many years, Sporting Kansas City has not had that star player that you're talking about. We thought we got it when we got Polito, but I think the individual talent on Sporting Kansas City over those many years of sustained success was not as good as some of the other teams in the league, but the system, the mentality, everything that Vermes has cultivated in the team is what carried that consistency that we just did all of the small things better than these other teams and all that. So that's good. That I think there is value to that. That's part of the consistency that Thad always talks about in the value from Vermes. But at the same time, it is a delicate machine. And when the margins are so thin, one little injury, one little rock gets in the gears and everything just falls apart. And that's where it kills us. The rosters are too small in this league where we simply cannot, the way Vermes has built these rosters, we simply cannot have an injury or everything goes to shit. We can't survive one bad call from a referee in a big moment because we can't score that second goal to take the lead and shut a team out. I'm tired of it. I think that's where my frustration comes in, is it's all of that. As I just acknowledged, there's value to it. I know and respect the knowledge that Vermes has and the things that he's done for the team, but I think that is where that's what I'm just so frustrated with. Every time there's just one thing that does it in. We're always so close, but we're not quite there.
You're absolutely right. I mean, again, you're repeating a lot of what I've said in the past, is that the system, Peter has a way of doing things. It will keep you going in the dark times, and it'll also sometimes maybe limit you in the bright times. But when it goes bad, it goes bad, and it's hard to overcome that inertia. Last year, you can always look at, like, if you look at games individually, there's a lot of games this year that, okay, they might have lost, but it was close. It was this or it was that. Or I think in the 2 of the last 3 games that they've lost, they've had XG higher than the opponent, and they just didn't score. There's all these little things you can look at and go, oh, well, they maybe aren't that bad. But then again, they just aren't getting it done. So something has to be better.
Well, a lot of what I was talking about was the team that Vermes has built, and he's trying to get out of that role. That's a big part of what I think a lot of people are mad about with this team, is just we don't ever sign that player that we need. The roster's just not good enough. There's not enough value subs to bring in, and that is on Vermes. But they tried to replace him. From the team's perspective, they tried. Like, Vermes has stated loudly he doesn't want to do this anymore. He said all of this at Media Day. He legitimately wants no part of this. He's talked about the dynamic that it creates with a player on the field and how it might affect that relationship after you've been talking to their asshole agent. And so he doesn't want to do this anymore. They tried to replace him with Gavin Wilkinson, and hell no. So they couldn't. They failed on that one as well. But there is something to this. He's trying to get out of one of these gigs. So Thad, is that the change that they need? Can Vermes, the manager, manage a roster built by someone else that they are apparently still searching for?
Well, he will still have control over that roster and an approval on those players.
He's now the CEO, right? The chief soccer officer or something. Isn't that what they call him?
Yeah, he'll be above that guy and below that guy, whoever that guy ends up being. It's I don't know. It sounds a little weird when you put it that way, but he even made the point the other day.
It sounds weird when you describe it accurately.
He even made the point the other day we were talking about Jake Davis's new contract and stuff. He goes, and by the way, I had nothing to do with writing up that part of it. So he was just very clear. I'm like, that's Brian Bliss did that. So, okay, thanks, Peter. I'm sure you had approval on that, though.
So I don't think he wants to deal with the intricacies of contract talk and things like that. That's what he's really trying to get out of.
Yeah.
Robert, I think have you noticed that the mentality has shifted this year when it comes to Vermes? I know there was a lot of loud, angry Vermes out fans in years past, but it seems like I'm maybe seeing less defense and support of Vermes this year.
Yeah, I was just reading some comments today, and there was one special commentator who said, I was pro Vermes because of this, because of that, but now I have shifted the other side. So, yeah, I don't see much defending of Vermes at all as far as those things go. And we all take that with a grain of salt because there's some things that people don't consider. But there is plenty of evidence for any owner, for a team that is so up and down like this. I mean, I think I looked at the stat. We're only 2 points ahead of where we were last year at this point.
Yes.
Pretty sure that's accurate. So there's plenty of evidence and plenty of support to justify getting rid of someone in that position.
So 2 points ahead of where they were at this point last year. I said this is arguably worse than the dark days of last year because, like we've talked about, there's not really a reason other than hoping that we sign some mystery magic man that the team will get better. Last year at this time, we had a $10 million Mexican striker ready to come back. We had Gadi Kinda, a creative midfielder that was about to come back. There was reason to see it. This year, there is less so, Thad.
Well, it's just mentality.
You gotta want it more.
Mentality.
Wait, is that a Taylor Swift song?
Which again, it's not wrong. It is mentality. I mean, but players get down. I mean, that's. I think what the biggest signing they could probably make is like a little army of sports psychologists.
Well, Cody, I think what the point is that, the fans and Vermes are never, ever, ever getting back together.
I don't know if they go on a winning streak and go on a deep Open Cup run. Do you think?
Possibly. Doubt it.
So I think that leads us to the question of, are things that bad? Because again, we've seen this happen before. Literally last year. Because last year was so up and down. That was well put earlier, Robert. Up and down. Because last year was like that, it is easy to forget that they were good for the majority of the season and that they unseated the top-ranked team like 6 months ago in the playoffs. So just last year, they made the playoffs and won the first round. So why does it feel that bad? Is it that bad that Peter Vermes should be fired? Are we getting that bad, or are we being unfair fans that are too frustrated with the state of things?
I would say going back to last year, no. Those of us who look closely at how the season went and followed like all the season in intricate, painful detail, understood how good Sporting was in the second half of the season, second 2/3 essentially,
right.
Or the last 2/3. The problem is because they were so bad at the start, they never got into a great position in the table. So, I mean, they got above it for a little bit, dropped down because there was another little couple 3 games where they faltered, and then they got back into it, and they got to the end, and they would have been, they destroyed St. Louis, which was, a shining moment from the last year, and then went to Houston and didn't look great, but if it wasn't for a bad ref call and a missed VAR call, they could have advanced from there.
I know. Right?
So, I mean, that was all good, but if you just look, oh yeah, they sucked. They barely made the playoffs. They only made it because, everybody makes the playoffs. And it's that kind of thing. So a lot of, I don't want to say the casual fan, because I mean, most of the people that read our site and other places aren't casual fans. And people who comment on Reddit and such aren't necessarily casual fans, but they also just see it in the bigger picture, not the littler picture that we look at in the minutia every day. Like, oh yeah, they played a little bit better. Hey, Jake Davis got a little bit better at right back this last couple of games or whatever. We look at this and we talk about it every week, sometimes 2 times a week, and we write about it. We, dissect it. So I just think that's hard for a lot of fans to go, even if they want to give the benefit of the doubt to a club legend, which Vermes is, even if they want to give that benefit of the doubt, all they see is last year was terrible. This year is terrible. A couple of years before that was terrible. And that's all they see. And so I don't want to, I'm not sitting here trying to defend Vermes. I'm trying to sit here and trash him. I'm just trying to I'm trying to play that both sides where I'm trying to be objective in how we look at things. But I think that's hard for a lot of fans to do. And I know teams I've been a fan of. I look at the table like, hey, my baseball team sucks. Okay. Oh, they just had a player's arm get broken or whatever. And it's like, oh, they suck. Okay, fire somebody, hire somebody else, sign somebody, make a trade. But if I knew the details of the team, I might think, okay, that's not so easy.
Yeah, Thad, I go back and forth so hard on this. If you just look at the team right now, of course we suck. We lost a key player and didn't really replace him. It's the same team, just not as good as last year. But then at the same time, last year's team was somehow really good. They were like the best team for most of the season. It's so confusing. But again, it's that we always feel like this. It seems like we've been doing this for so long. And actually where I think that this conversation comes to is that you mentioned baseball. This is Kansas City. We can support the hell out of a loser. The Royals were a joke for decades, most of my life. The Chiefs were terrible most of my life.
Okay, Brady.
So Kansas City can support a loser, but this team had sustained success. They won trophies regularly. The club said, we win trophies. They established a standard. So it is not absurd for fans to be like, you know what? One round of the playoff win isn't enough. We want to win trophies. They told us we win trophies. Now, admittedly, I haven't heard the team say that in many years. But that's kind of where I'm getting to here is, has Sporting Kansas City lowered those expectations? Do we as fans are we being unfair by saying Vermes hasn't won a trophy since 2017? That's not good enough. Is that the bottom line for Vermes, or do we need to tamper our expectations and just accept that Sporting Kansas City is a upper middle class MLS team?
Okay, that's a good question. I don't accept it. Like, they have the resources, they have the ability to be a top level team, but the problem is consistency. It is a cap league. It's a league where it's forced parity essentially. And yeah, you can say, okay, Miami brought in Messi and Suarez and Alba and Busquets and might bring in whoever the next one is. And LA has done that and stuff like that. But that's also the exception. That's the weird ones. But you can have teams like Columbus win multiple trophies. Sporting won multiple trophies. But I mean, it's just, I don't know how to say this. I feel like Sporting isn't given up. Sporting hasn't said, okay, we're just going to be mediocre. And, I see a lot of fans will say, oh, the owners are just trying to make money. I think if they just want to make money, there's other businesses that will make more money than this. I don't think that this is like the financial boon that, owning an NFL team is. Maybe in another 20 years it will be.
Yeah, it's a long running thing. You're not getting operational income by operating a team.
Yeah, I mean, I know Sporting was just ranked for reasonably high in all soccer teams by Sportico around the world and all that stuff, but they're not.
Because those rankings mean so much, Thad.
I know. Well, I mean, in theory, they have, data behind them, but
right.
I just don't see like Cliff Illig sitting back and getting his wallet fatter on his ass right now because Sporting is not spending money. That's just not what's happening.
But okay, so you said you're not accepting that we don't win trophies. We're not competing for a trophy every year. So does that mean the buck stops with Peter Vermes? He's the one that is not good enough right now. We're a team that wins trophies. He doesn't win trophies.
Yes, I think the owners are also intelligent enough to say he's done well in the past. Because I guess here's the question: Do you look at Vermes as the league is passing by? Because I've seen a lot of people say that.
I've been hearing that. Seattle was saying that fucking 12 years ago.
Yeah, and you know what? I hear people saying it about Schmetzer at the moment too.
Yeah.
So it's a little crazy that you can be successful 3 years ago and now the league has passed you by because they've allowed more money into the league or something like that. That's a little bit crazy to me. I think it's a little bit crazy that in some leagues in the world you can have a 3-game losing streak and you'll be out and they'll throw somebody else in there and you'll get a new manager bump. I know some fans want it to be like that. I don't quite want it to be like that. I also think that there's some point you have to say, yeah, the deal is done and you have to move on. When that is, I don't know, man, because I partly want to say that, yes, there's something that needs to happen. I don't want to I'm not going to ever sit here and say Vermes out, but I can understand why people do think that.
I know. I'm struggling with it. Sorry, Robert. Let me get this one thing in. I think where I shifted from him was last year, the idea of playing the coaching carousel for however long seemed like the craziest thing to me. How could you possibly want to do that? But as this goes on, I think I am not so positive of that fact.
So, I mean, going back to Shalloi's quote, if we're not in to win it, why are we doing this? Right? Okay. Everybody wants to win. Everybody's in it to win. But I think what fans are really bothered by is they haven't seen enough. They've seen the same 4-3-3. This year it's been experimented with, I think, out of necessity more than anything. But they've seen the same patterns of play. They've seen the same thing. Oh, the team is the star, the hardworking attitude. They've seen that. They've seen not enough subbing in their opinions, even though that's been up and down a little bit. But I think they're just tired of seeing the same thing. And it is a little bit stale. I think everybody would agree with that in some way, shape, or form. But we can't have that small town mentality because, you mentioned Columbus. Yeah, 2 championships, 2 MSL Cups in the last 5 years. They're in the Champions Cup final. Cincinnati won the Supporters Shields last year. So we can't keep using that small market excuse either. And we need to develop with this league. Okay, we got Polito, 5 years ago, because we needed a striker and he was available. And okay, we can make a big splash, but you don't build your team around one player. And, it helped for a while, but we just don't have the roster from top to bottom that is high enough quality that's kept up with MLS as far as the league goes. But we are definitely in it to win. And I think Peter's leash, if you want to use that term, I know people hate it, at the end of this season, if things have not improved in a pretty dramatic way, I think maybe this could be the offseason in which maybe he's offloaded.
I think he just has a leash now. I think a leash never existed, but I imagine one exists. It might still be long, but I think it exists.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Why do you think leash is not a good term?
Just because everybody uses it.
Yeah, it's a cliche for a coach.
Hot seat? How about the hot seat? Is the seat getting warm? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if it doesn't go well, it could be if they don't beat Tulsa and they're still not playing well in MLS, I mean, it could be a cruel summer for everybody and a lot of changes could happen.
Yeah, but I think they're looking at the window, like we've been saying, they're going to give him a chance with this window and see what he can do.
Will they give him a chance if they get another technical director, whatever term they want to use?
Well, I meant to point this out earlier when I was talking about that they tried to bring in Gavin Wilkinson. My problem with the team is that I believe right now this roster isn't good enough to, win a trophy. Sure, I'll just use that. It's not good enough to be at the top of MLS is probably a better way to say it. And that is Vermes because he's the one that built the roster up until this point. But do you fire him over that? Because they've already like acknowledged that he doesn't want to do that anymore. So it's like, do you fire Peter Vermes, the GM, when he's already stated he doesn't want to do it anymore? They're already looking for someone else. I don't know if you fire the head coach because of that.
When they've already fired the GM.
Right.
But he'll still have control over who comes in anyway.
Yeah.
Man, it's not an easy answer no matter which way you look at this.
Why do coaches get fired?
They lose.
Okay.
Or they punch players.
They don't meet the club's
or
expectations.
Or they date players.
Yeah, different league on that one.
Okay, so
it could happen here.
In MLS, in any league in the world, if you change a coach, you're trying to change the dynamic, right?
Yes.
And I think you can argue hard that the dynamic that has existed here has existed for quite a while, and change is more needed each and every season because of the results that have happened, been so up and down, and the same things keep happening. It's a very valid argument.
Yeah, and I just want to throw this out there. And again, I'm not trying to suggest it, but I'm trying to question it. It may not be that the league has passed Vermes by. It may not be that he's not a good coach. It may not be that he still couldn't be a GM or any of that stuff. But sometimes it's just that the message gets old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's not a bad way to coach of heart and grit and endurance and toughness and all that stuff. It's not a bad way to coach. I mean, we've seen coaches have a lot of success like that. Hell, that's what St. Louis was last year. They had success. The problem is sometimes it just gets old having the same message. Nothing new. I don't want to say it doesn't have anything new because they do have new wrinkles in how they apply the same old 4-3-3 or whatever.
And a new
But
formation.
it still comes that there could be just different voices. I mean, I've seen this happen at almost every level of corporations and organizations and in the military and teams. Like the old Chiefs, Schottenheimer was a really good coach. He got the best out of them in the regular season, but he got the best out of them in the regular season, and they didn't have another level in the postseason. Right? That's the way I interpreted most of Schottenheimer's days. It took a better coach or a different coach to do something different. And sometimes it fails dramatically and you're terrible, right?
Yep.
But sometimes all of a sudden it might fail for a year and then it gets better. Bringing in Houston's coach, Ben Olsen. He was mostly a mediocre coach in D.C. He had a couple ups, a lot of downs. He was learning to be a coach, so there's a lot of that factor to it. But he come into Houston and had a good season last year. This year, until he beat Sporting, they were in 8th place and kind of mediocre. I'm not sure exactly where their position is today, but they've been kind of mediocre also. Coaches go up and down. Vermes can be lauded for how consistently decent to good they were and trophies they won. And maybe now the message is just old. It's not that he's a bad coach. It's just that I've heard it too long.
It's that.
Oh, exactly. Exactly what you're saying. Anything I'm saying is not against Peter as a person or as a coach. It's just, you've got to do better.
I still do hope that they figure it out this year. I hope they sign a midfielder and another player, and all of a sudden, look, the team is actually really good. Look, they were good last year. Look, they're good again. And I hope this all works out. And Vermes is a club legend. I don't want to see this not work out. So I am rooting for everything that we've been hoping for to happen this year. But it's of course fair to just be so frustrated right now.
The problem is last year at this point in the season with some less points, you had potential for Polito and Kinda to come in and make the difference. For now, for a player to make the difference, you have to get to the window, which you're going to have over half the season, close to 2/3 of the season already done by the time that player could come in. And then that player has to hit the ground running, which some guys do come into the league and hit the ground running and make a difference, and some guys don't. Typically, the guys who come in and hit the ground running are some of those high-priced guys on the coast. But, I mean, we had it with Tommy and Agata. But you have to hit on those. You can't miss. You can't this is a guy who's going to take some time. Or, hey, he's already played a full season and he needs some rest. That would be somebody who'd have to come in immediately, and they'd have to make a big impact if you haven't got it straightened out by then. That's the one problem with, the window is the option to make it better this year.
So I think it's also something that's going on here with the current is you see Vlatko and how he uses subs a lot, and he makes sure that everybody up and down through the roster is ready to play because they have some playing experience. They're ready to step in, and the level doesn't drop much when those subs come in. And he's built a roster that has talent all throughout it, and they work well as a team. And it's refreshing to see in comparison to, what is happening with Sporting, because it's a challenge to keep that up for so many years like Vermes has, and it does get stale. So that contrast, I think, also are a lot of what Kansas City fans are seeing as well and are frustrated by as far as Sporting goes.
And a lot of those fans were not paying attention when the current were terrible their first year back, when the roster was so bad. It makes Sporting 2's roster look good in comparison. You know what I mean? It's which Sporting 2 has actually been playing well. I'm just meaning it by the level it would have been.
Right.
Anyway, and then the second year they were better, and they went to a championship and lost. And then last year they were terrible again. The roster, a lot of those same players, were getting experience. Sometimes that's what it takes is bringing in players. But they had a lot of players to unload. They had a lot of players to get rid of, and that made a difference.
We'll be right back. All right. Sporting Kansas City not playing in the midweek games, but the situation could get worse for them. 13 games in action, all but 3 teams. Sporting Kansas City is one of them. So get your fantasy picks in early this week. Double game weeks. It's like free points. Portland and San Jose are the 2 teams that are behind Sporting Kansas City right now, 1 point behind. And, of course, they are playing each other. So I don't think there's a scenario, at least on the Wednesday games, where Sporting ends up in last place. They could be tied, level with points.
Cody, you're killing me, man. Come on.
But the goal difference, even if the 2 of them tie and all 3 teams are tied for last with 11 points, I believe Sporting would have the edge on goal differential. So it can't get last place just yet, but a lot of midweek games in action.
So you sit there and figured out where they could end up, right? Did you leave like a blank space at the bottom for them?
I don't know who's more likely to win that game. Both of those teams have been really poor this year. It's got to be Portland. Portland just got the new jersey sponsor. They're going to be flying. They're going to be feeling good. They're going to be flying.
Who's their sponsor?
It's an ice cream company, I believe.
I just know that Sporting doesn't play, and it's kind of like, thank goodness, right? Kind of.
Little breather.
Yeah, exactly. You got Miami, Orlando. That should be a barn burner. You got Philly, New York, which is always a good one. Let's see what else stands out.
I like Orlando and Miami, not just because I like watching Messi.
Austin, Houston, Texas battle.
Purple and pink. You gotta like purple and pink going head to head.
And then the Red Bulls and DC United. There you go. That's always a classic one as well. So we're still kind of in the rivalry week, right?
Yeah. St. Louis is taking on LAFC. I assume Olivier Giroud is not arriving yet, but they did just sign him. So hopefully we can get St. Louis a loss there. LAFC is a very good team this year, and they're just going to get better.
Tillamook is Portland's new sponsor.
There it is.
I always thought of them as a cheese company.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I had that wrong. It does say dairy. Their shirts say dairy, but I saw someone call it an ice cream company.
It is a dairy company, but if you look at the picture, the guys are holding cheese, cheese, and cheese.
All right. Kansas City Current. You guys were talking about them a little bit in that last segment, just reliving the dark days for the Current, because they are absolutely flying right now, undefeated, 6 wins, 3 draws, 0 losses, 21 points. They are tied with the Pride, Orlando Pride, for first. I believe they have the edge on goal differential.
They do.
They're just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, mostly.
No, they've got another gear to hit, Thad?
Well, right now, I think they slipped a gear, actually.
Right.
They had in the last week, but they slipped a gear, but there's a lot of factors to that.
Well, and there's a lot of positives to that 1-0 win. I liked Vlatko's comment where it was like 5-2 is great when everything is clicking like this, but you know, over the course of a season and when the playoffs come around, grinding out a 1-0 win is a good win.
But they had the 1-1 draw in Houston, and then had to get to midweek game in Seattle, and
the Houston game doesn't count. There was like a 6-hour delay in the middle of it. I'll give them a break on that one.
Well, I'm just saying that's why they slipped a gear a little bit. They couldn't get on their flights. They had to get new hotel rooms, get a charter flight that apparently was
that they got fined for last year.
They got approval. They got approval this time. But they a charter flight apparently was rather scary, according to Lola Bonta. I can't remember the name of the song, but they were singing a song.
Don't worry, they were Bob Marley.
Yeah.
They were singing Bob Marley.
So yeah, that's it. And they were singing that during the flight into Denver to refuel or check the gas gauge or something. And so all of these things came into play, and then playing in Seattle and then getting back here to play. And in each case, they were playing a team that was more rested and didn't have travel than them. And in this case, like North Carolina didn't have any games midweek. So all of that stuff came into play. So tired legs, little injuries, all that stuff probably came into play. But pulling out the 2 shutouts in a row and just a one goal game before that, with all those things in play, was a good effort.
Temwa Chawinga, just absolutely electric. She is incredible. I watched the highlights of that game. There's a play she didn't even score on, but she just squeezes between 2 players, muscles past them. I'm pretty sure she clunked their heads together like they were the Three Stooges as she went by. Didn't get the right shot off, but just she has established herself in 9 games in this league as absolutely must-watch soccer. She probably established it sooner than that, but they're 9 games in, and you absolutely have to turn this game on if you're a fan of this sport.
Every time she touches the ball, you got to be watching that, man.
Yes.
That's, again, I don't want to criticize fans because I want fans to listen to these podcasts, but I actually saw a post somewhere that said, is anybody else not impressed with Temwa Chawinga? And I'm like, what? They're like, oh, she has a terrible first touch. She's not good at this. She's not good at that. I'm like, oh, what game are you watching?
Oh,
She's
man.
pretty.
I mean, maybe I could see like an argument on her first touch not being perfect or not being like the best aspect of her game. But you're exactly right. Every time she touches the ball, it has the feeling of like that something is gonna happen. She is officially at that point. She's playing so well right now.
She gets the ball and she heads towards the goal, and
Yeah.
she runs players, or she touches it past them, outruns them, she muscles them, but she also makes good, smart runs to do things, right? So she doesn't always have the best first touch, but a lot of her runs are just very smart at where she's going. When she holds on to the ball, so much is so good with what she does. Again, not perfect, but then again, who is? Robert?
Claire Hutton. That's who's perfect.
Yeah.
That girl is so good.
Baller.
Seriously.
Yep.
She is so good at every aspect of the game. I am very impressed with her.
And she's just getting better. And she's 9 games into her first season as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And this game, she came very close to having an assist.
Mhm.
She made that nice run with Temwa up, played it off to Temwa, back to Claire, back to Temwa, who made the shot that I'm assuming it was a shot, not a cross, but it was just deflected by the keeper into the path of Dabinia, who easily touched it in.
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of Claire since basically that first game, just watching her. She's near the top of the stats on tackles and interceptions. And I think, give a year under the belt, man, she's just going to be amazing.
I said Chawinga is must-watch soccer, but I think the team as a whole is definitely just must-watch soccer, where that's the team that is keeping us all in it, the palate cleanser of Kansas City soccer. And I think the biggest example of their greatness, the thing that makes it most clear for me, is that Kristen Hamilton is just on the bench. I'm pretty sure Hammy would be one of the better players in the attacking core of most other teams in this league, and she's not even playing all of that much. She was like my favorite player last year, and there's so much skill on this team. She's like barely seeing the field.
She's not seeing the field. That's got a lot of fans questioning how crazy is Vlaco. He's not playing Hammy. Well,
it's working.
Obviously they're being severely harmed by that. And I like Hammy, so don't get me wrong. This isn't a criticism of her.
Yeah.
I love to watch her play. And again, she was one of those that never gave up, always had the right mentality, always went forward, always did the right things, had the right mentality. Did I use mentality enough?
Yeah, you did. Kind of a theme.
You got to want it more.
She wanted it. Another one that, just because I have a different view when I'm doing photos, right? That I have to go back and sometimes watch the game to see slightly different views. But I have so many photos because I was shooting the offensive half in the offense on both halves for this last game. I have so many photos of Temwa just like running straight at me with the ball. Like because she would just take the ball and go through people. But one of my favorite series of photos is actually Haley Mace, like fought for the ball, got the ball, was coming up the field. Somebody comes in and tries to like body her off, and that player goes flying. Somebody else comes in and tries to body her off. She goes flying. Somebody else comes in, and I mean, it's just like Mace was a wrecking ball, man. So that whole side of North Carolina had to go home sore.
So this Saturday, Current have Racing Louisville. That is at 8:30. Sporting KC, 7:30, are taking on Austin. I actually don't know if those games are at home or not. I didn't look that far.
Yeah, I don't usually look past the week ahead.
Austin is away. That's right. So I don't need to request a credential for that one. But the Louisville, Racing Louisville, the Current is at home this weekend, I believe. Yes.
The Current is at home this weekend. And that's the other thing, too, is of their 9 games, 5 have been on the road. And with that horrible road trip, and they're still undefeated.
Okay. There you have it. Your next week of KC soccer.
Just I'm going to throw another one out there is SKC 2-1 this weekend.
Yes, they did.
2-1 win. And they were down 1-0, and 2 goals came back. 2 goals by Beto, assisted by Cameron Habibullah in both of those cases.
Well done.
And I have something I want to write up about Habibullah when I get some time not doing photos. But somebody compared him to a guy named Benny Failhaber.
Ah, very nice. Beto. I've been calling that guy Beto. Beto Avila. Beto. Beto.
Yeah. You know how bad I am with names, man. I don't always get you right, Cotty.
I'm very God damn. I'm very proud of you. You went for those 2 names, and I think you did quite well. So well done.
I'm pretty sure I got Cameron Habibullah correct. Or very close.
That was even more difficult. The other guy that scored for the Rapids was called Noah Strelnauer. I'm pretty sure I nailed that one.
Did you see who they had on their MLS Next Pro roster that day?
I did not.
Abu Bukar.
Oh, wow, really?
I'm like, what is he doing down there?
Wow.
I don't know why.
Abubakar.
Yeah, that guy.
Crazy hair guy.
But I mean, he's been a first-team guy forever.
Were they using him like a rehab stint? Like baseball
I'm guessing
AAA?
that's what it was. I'm guessing that's probably what it was, but I hadn't really looked.
All right. Oh, one other relevant thing. Team Canada has a new coach. Jesse Marsh.
Jesse Marsh, yes.
That's pretty interesting. But man, did you see that it's like sponsored? The MLS clubs in Canada are sponsoring this. Did you see this, Thad?
Yes.
What?
I thought that's what I was cracking up. I actually listened to the press conference, and somebody asked about, like, can you give us more detail about this? Well, they're just wanting to help out, but you'll get more details later.
I saw
blah, blah, blah.
I saw more. I don't know if this was a quotes from the press conference, but they did to give more detail, and they likened it to NIL in the NCAA. Like it's such a weird thing. I've never heard of this before, but yes, the 3 Canadian MLS clubs they're calling it sponsoring, but they're chipping in to pay Jesse Marsh's salary to coach the Canadian national team. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Wow.
That's right. Part of it is Canada soccer has been so badly handled that they are broke.
Yes, they're like
they couldn't even bring in a friendly to have, to make money because you have to have money to make money kind of thing, right?
They like almost went bankrupt last year.
Yeah, and they still have CBAs to figure out to pay players. I mean, they have still a lot of issues. So
they host the World Cup in 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Get it together, Canada.
Man, do we really want them to? They have some good players.
That's a valid point.
I mean, part of me wants North American soccer to be good and competitive and all that stuff, but I have a hard time rooting for Canada and Mexico. That's not easy.
Canada is on one trajectory, and Mexico has kind of been on another over the last decade or so. So maybe we should be more worried about Canada
at the moment, but Mexico still has way more players.
Yes, they do.
But another interesting little twist on that was the three ownership of the three MLS teams. It was just listed as Vancouver Whitecaps. They didn't really list the ownership on that one that I saw. But Saputo, he's the one that fired Jesse Marsh when he was coaching Montreal.
Oh, it's a good fun fact. Well done, Thad.
And because I remember Jesse Marsh was when he's coaching Montreal, and I went down and watched Montreal practice one day, and I had to give him a little bit of a kudo that you remember back in the old days, Beasler was known for the long throw-ins, and Montreal was the only team that like really badly disrupted that year, because Marsh like basically stuck the biggest guy he could right over on the sideline as close as the refs would
Stood
allow him
right
to
in front of Beasler,
be right in Beasler's face. Yeah. So he couldn't like do any accurate throws, and it worked.
Yeah, Marsh is clever. I know it hasn't worked absolutely everywhere he's gone, but I don't know. There's a right set of circumstances where he could really do some good things for them.
Yeah. Again, one of the questions though is he was the analyst for the U.S. soccer games and kind of heavily criticizing Berhalter's handling of things, and then almost angling for that job, and then he ends up in Canada. So that's going to be kind of a little fun matchup when they finally play each other again.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
If they're both still coaching at that point.
But I don't think he was. I don't know. Wasn't Marsh kind of always saying he wasn't wanting to take that job? I think he was indicating he liked the Premier League and the club gigs, but I don't know. I never saw it as like that Jesse Marsh wanted that job. I kind of thought he had said that he didn't really want it.
I think, sometimes you can say you don't want a job that you really want.
Right.
So, I mean, like, I really wouldn't want to travel around the world doing photos for Sports Illustrated. So that would be a pain in my ass.
He wants him to ask. Like,
Sports Illustrated, come on, Thad, do better.
It's like you don't want to go out with your friends, but you want them to invite you.
It's yeah. I mean, I shouldn't have said Sports Illustrated, because do they even exist anymore?
No.
Yeah, they do.
No, you're showing your age. Didn't they just disband entirely?
I think the magazine version. I think they might still have online.
Oh, yeah. That they use AI writers for.
But if you go from the magazine version to the online version and you're using AI writers, it's really just a matter of time. I mean, like I am thinking about making an offer to absorb Sports Illustrated into the KC Soccer Journal.
There we go. We could
let's gather our funds together.
Yeah, 50 cents.
Okay. Does anyone, Thad, can you give us some optimism for Sporting Kansas City? The Current keep us in it. The Current are making us enjoy soccer. But this game against Austin, can you give us anything that will make us feel better? All
right. Well, I'll leave you with two thoughts. One, Austin, I have no clue whether Sporting will go down to Austin and play well. I know last year we didn't think Sporting was going to go into Seattle and play well, and that was kind of like the kickoff to them getting better. So maybe it happens. Maybe they go to Austin and they play well. It's a green team. I have reasons to hate Austin because their owner was the piece of shit Precourt that tried to move Columbus Crew, an original 96 team, and then basically got a free expansion team because of all that shit. So I really don't like him. Josh Wolf been pretty good coach, but he's never been one of my favorite players. So all of that goes in that kind of vein. So hopefully they go down there and they win that game. Hopefully
that was the nicest I've heard you describe how you feel about Josh Wolf.
Last time I talked to him, he was actually pretty nice. So I do soften my opinions over time. I do sometimes soften my opinions over time. Sometimes they get worse. So I'm honest. I hold grudges.
Okay, now make me feel better.
But the flip side is, and I said this last year, is, even if Sporting isn't playing well, go out there and have some fun. Go out there and root and try to create some atmosphere and have fun with that. Up in Omaha, that was one of the most fun games I've had in a long time. I'm standing in front of a bunch of supporters and I'm getting heckled by the supporters, right? Mm-hmm. So some of the old Calderon guys, the ones that are in Calderon Emeritus now, is that the right way to say that word? But they were heckling me. They were heckling the Omaha players. And at one point, Sporting's down 1-0 to a third division team, and they're having fun heckling and just singing and drinking beer. That's part of the whole process of being a supporter and a fan of a team, is you still going to have fun, drink some beer, enjoy it with your friends, even if it doesn't come out the way you want it to.
My football team's got me drinking. Sporting!
The other side don't seem so tough, and 3 own goals ain't all that rough. Our skipper has just been sent off. Supporters strong have all gone soft. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking.